I like to confuse people,
Okay.
so I've left it that way.
Well, Nate said he's gonna try to confuse me now and switch it up now, just because I noticed it.
I've always thought about just writing building about it.
Did you mention the Billy we talked with you?
My evil twin?
California sunglasses.
Oh, yeah!
Oh.
I gotta tell you about this guy. He was something else. Danny knows about him too.
He found me. Yeah.
It was fun, let me tell you.
Awesome.
All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. This meeting was at the request of the city council to discuss a fireworks ordinance. Now, the ordinance was proposed by Alderman Vendrio back in June, May or June. We did get input from ambulance, fire, and police in consideration of that ordinance, but there are a lot more questions that came up at the city council meeting on June 10, and that meeting ended with the council asking for the committee to meet and get all the perspectives in the same room for further discussion. So I think we just open up the floor for that discussion tonight. I did rewatch that video today. The two questions that were asked are, the big question is what's an acceptable level of risk from all of our emergency services when it comes to fireworks. And then we had asked if there was a possibility to host a safety demonstration, sort of like the derby, the bicycle derby that you host, on safe use, safe practices for fireworks, so on and so forth. So I'll just open the floor with that. With that question of what an acceptable level of risk looks like from everyone's perspective. And I do have in front of you the items.
Open the can question.
I do have in front of
As big as
you
you
the
want to
items
make it.
that were used at that meeting.
Kind of out of our control.
The ordinance is in there. The survey and memo that I put together for that meeting. Then you have another sheet in front of you from the National Fire Protection Association on some general fireworks statistics.
Remind me, Nate, was it about 100 residents answered the survey?
102.
Has there been just history within Lennox that this has come up before and been discussed, and kind of like the one-way street idea by the park? That's good idea, but it's been talked about and done before.
It's been a long time that we've had this discussion.
Sure.
Yeah, we haven't since I've been chief, but since I've been assistant chief, I don't think there's been brought up, in the last,
7 or 8 years
it's been a long time.
that we've had this discussion with the public. I think the last time was about 7 or 8 years ago. There was a general discussion, not at a council meeting, but general discussion about whether or not it would be worth, and I believe Wayne was involved with that, or Earl was involved with that, I know for sure.
Yeah.
And I completely agreed with the fire department at the time. They don't like chasing down people's houses that are on fire on the 3rd and 4th of July. I'm very impartial to whether they do or whether they don't. If they do, it just means I have less work. If they do, it doesn't change. I've been doing it long enough, chasing around fireworks. I'm very impartial. I did go ahead and pull some of the other communities' ordinances from around us, and during that meeting, or just before that meeting that we had last time, I pulled quite a few of the selection. And the general consensus that I was getting is that if they were allowing people to light fireworks in their community, very little restrictions were made, short of not on the streets, any city property. It looks like they redid theirs just recently. I brought their updated copy.
Last year.
If, in fact, the council does decide to move forward with, and again, I'm not putting the cart in front of the horse, I just want this to be out there. The verbiage that T has and that Nate had put together, and we discussed that as well back at the last meeting, we need to be very specific on how we are putting that verbiage in there. Because I've lived in Viborg most of my life. I lived in Hurley, spent a lot of time in Parker. And I know how crazy things can get when you don't have the proper verbiage to enforce.
Sure.
So if you just open it up for anything and everything, you're gonna wind up with a lot of headaches on the law enforcement side, probably the medical side, and more than likely the fire's gonna be responding to something. Whether it be a garage on fire. I think Sioux Falls just seen that this last 3rd of July or 4th of July, somebody lit their garage on fire.
And I don't believe T or Harrisburg had any this year, but
Harrisburg had, somebody was walking by a house, their garbage was on fire from,
Yeah.
so
And
luckily somebody
Harrisburg's had several.
the past couple of
Structure-
years.
Afterwards, people put them in their plastic garbage can and drag them up to the garage or in the garage.
And the towns that we looked at, all of them allow fireworks. I mean, the verbiage is a little different from here to there. Sioux Falls does not. But most of them around here do. It'd be interesting to understand the process that if some of these towns did switch recently, what the implications of that, and if it was ironic too that there was a fire. Maybe you and I just talked about that too. That there was that 4th of July firework fire. Is that garbage you were talking about?
Garbage, and then, Hartford had one.
Hartford?
On us, not Swan Lake. What's that lake up there?
Wall Lake.
Wall Lake, yeah.
Oh, okay, yep.
There's
Yep.
so much fire there.
And I imagine Sioux Falls has some, even though they don't allow it, but I mean, just even here in town, the amount of fireworks I heard going off. Yeah,
It's pretty tough to enforce it.
I'm sure.
One of the biggest challenges that we face enforcing is you show up at a residence where you just saw the entire sky lit up from their backyard, and one, either it's a fenced-in area and there's nobody coming to the door, or two, nobody has any fireworks back there. By the time you get back in that backyard, everything's cleaned up, and miraculously, there's nobody back there that was shooting fireworks.
Just milk and cookies.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's difficult. There's a lot of cases that we do catch them red-handed.
Yeah.
But,
And what do you do in situations? You just do some verbal warnings, or?
typically what we've done in the past, and which we've seen pretty good luck with, is we just have a conversation with them the first time. We let them know if we come back again, I'm just gonna issue a citation for it, but, there was one incident, had to be about 9 years ago, that, did involve a council member, and, that should have issued us, there should have been a citation issued on the spot, because they literally had a display in the road, right at the edge of their driveway. But,
Jeez, Billy.
he hasn't done it
William.
since.
It was William. They all three go.
He's been pretty good since. But no, it's pretty tough to enforce it, and, you know, you get a lot of the conversations that brew from us, so like, the street dance is one of the biggest ones that we get our conversations, because we have the largest population on Main Street.
Yeah.
I've heard it from, yeah, we really don't care because we don't shoot them, to, you know, it's unpatriotic. Well, it's unpatriotic to I'm taking your kid to the hospital because he's missing 2 fingers. So, like I said, I'm very indifferent on either way.
How long ago did the ordinance change? Do you guys remember?
It's been that way since I've been here.
Yeah, I bet
At
it's,
least 10 years?
It's got.
It's been
It's been
20,
that way since I
20
lived
plus.
in Lennox, and that was in 2013, so
Okay.
it's.
I was asking somebody and they thought late 90s.
Oh, wow.
I would guess that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like probably 97, 98, 99, somewhere in that area.
Do we know which towns around us do not?
Vibrant does not allow it. Hurley doesn't care. Parker has a very strange ordinance on. how
Yeah, we
they-
read that one. That was a different one.
I think Beersford doesn't allow it.
My guess is, I'm looking at the language, if we were to look at Beersford and other towns our size, my guess is the language is very similar. It's probably one of those CCOG ordinance rights.
The new one that T has out, they spent some time on it.
Yeah, well, we spent extra time on, because, you know, you, me, and Brett had discussed the definition of fire, how do we define what's allowed and what's not, in different classes.
I mean, I like some of the time changes which is
Mhm.
the number one thing that I really appreciated, that they took time to think about that ordinance, is instead of just having it, you know, basically it's the 3rd of July, everybody go have fun. We'll hope you guys stop by the 6th, that they put a good time frames in there that are enforceable. It's easy to get through to the general public, and it would be something easy for the general public to wrap their head around.
The other thing we liked about what team is, they had a resolution that allowed the city council to suspend
Yes.
if the conditions dictate, so if it was severe like last year, obviously, it makes a lot of sense not to allow them because of track conditions. So yeah, it was, I mean, they drafted a good one. And I think if we're going to put one in place that has the enforcement teeth that you're looking for, this works.
Yeah.
But we also need to hear what that risk looks like from the rest of you in terms of calls, and I mean, we do have, we know there's a risk involved here, so.
And on top of that, for you folks, staffing, it's 3rd of July.
I mean,
How many
yeah,
people are you guys gonna be, and is that gonna turn into a situation like, at my old department, they now have guaranteed staffing. Every weekend, there's 12 people that are put on that call. You guys, I don't want that ever to happen to Lennox, but that's how bad
It could happen.
that's how bad it's getting up here in Mankato,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously more risk if we allow it.
Right.
We will have guys, on duty, so.
Do you guys normally have staff that are on call?
We don't, but a situation like the 3rd and the 4th, we keep track of who's in town and who's available. We don't tell them they can't leave town, but we
Right.
check beforehand to see
Right.
who's around.
I wonder how many people our current ordinance, having that current ordinance in place, how many people are just holding back because of that ordinance, How many more people are we going to add to the amount if we do pass something? Is it
How
gonna
many
be?
rule followers are just waiting?
Yeah, I mean,
I did this year.
This year, this year.
I didn't realize it was a rule.
I will tell you, Sioux Falls had their hands full.
I bet.
It was definitely crazy. You listen to the
There's a couple
radio,
hundred calls.
the radio was nonstop about them calling out fireworks displays.
Yeah.
In a lot of the areas of town that you wouldn't have thought that they'd have that big a problem in, like the downtown area. I was astonished to hear that many calls coming from the downtown
Really?
area.
Hmm. That's a good question, though.
yeah, I mean,
It's hard to know.
is it gonna change by this much?
I think it'll increase it, truthfully.
Yeah.
So if there's a structure fire, and say, like, they set their neighbor's house on fire, is the person who caused the fire, is their insurance gonna cover? I mean, does anybody know, like, the liability on that?
Civilly, yes.
Yeah.
If you intentionally cause damage to somebody else's property, you are held liable for that. And now that's a civil suit.
Right.
The criminal side of that is, it's not like we're gonna go charge them with intentional damage to property or arson, unless they were intentionally doing something stupid. You're having Roman candle wars in the backyard and you light your neighbor's house on fire, yeah, we're probably gonna have a different scenario. But the accidental side of it, where you have the hot embers that are coming back down to earth, and we have, especially over on the east side of town, central east, there are so many trees that have huge canopies that are old. That's where my concern from the fire department side of things is that you will probably respond to something along those lines. Tree fire, fire in the backyard. I have less concerned about the amount of junk that's in people's backyard than what I did 4 years ago. But, it still doesn't mitigate the fact that you folks will end up probably working at some point.
Yeah.
Nate, did you ever, talk to the city attorney about having a space designated in town that people can shoot off from, or is that just a non-possibility because of liability?
We didn't talk about it, the feeling I got from that council meeting is that it just was not a direction we wanted to go in. Because the more we put our stamp on it, the more we dedicate space to it, so on and so forth, the more liable we become as a sponsor of that event.
I'm like, well, we're indifferent. We know the 3rd and 4th, we have 3 crews on at all times because we're gonna be busy, and I don't see it superly increasing our call volume. It might a little bit, but I don't see it being a huge part. I mean, right now, people are stupid out in the country, they'll be stupid in town.
Yeah.
They'll save me some miles.
Well, even the ones that are careless are probably the ones that are shooting them off in town anyways,
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And that's just a gut feeling I have, I don't know, I don't have any
You'd
science
be
behind it,
100% correct on that. They're the ones that do not care.
but, yeah.
They have zero consideration of whether it's legal or not. And the more they have to hurry to try to do it, the more likelihood that something's gonna go wrong.
Mhm.
So,
And in my 9 4th of Julys on the department, we've had, I think, 3, maybe 4 firework injury calls in total. So it's not very many.
I've never been to a fire, and I've never been to a fireworks call in town that was serious injury.
Was it 3 years ago, the hay shed went up, and then you guys went over to Worthing to take care of a house fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only ones I can think of,
Yeah.
so.
Both firework related?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the one was, about 2.5 miles out of town.
Yeah, on all 44.
And the other one in Worthing was they put their fireworks in the garbage can, and
See, that's the thing that,
Thank
in
goodness.
thinking about it, that's what we're gonna have issues with, I feel like, cause people are gonna wanna dispose of them, and they're not gonna dispose of them properly. And we're gonna have issues with garbage cans and garages.
We could do a safety video using Nate. Here's your bucket of water. That's where they go.
Yeah, well, next thing I'll hear is, well, it's gonna cost more money.
To pour water in
Oh,
it.
it's a lot of water.
There's a method to our madness.
Save your rain water.
Yeah, it's from a rain barrel. Look glad maybe the demonstration dummy for the fireworks safety video.
Don't hold it in your hand, watch.
3, 2,
For us, the probably bigger worry is the people putting the garbage can next to the garage or in the garage, because then they go to bed or whatever. You know, and the fire gets a lot more advanced, where if somebody sees a bottle rocket go in the garage and they call us, we're gonna be there quick enough, it won't be an issue, you know.
it's not so much the actual shooting fireworks, it's
Right,
the cleanup afterwards where they're not as careful.
right.
I definitely can see it from both sides of the fence. I for one love shooting off fireworks, but I hate chasing. I hate chasing people that are shooting. And I really don't like standing by, not just fireworks calls, but fire calls, medical calls. That has got to be one of the worst parts of our job. Feeling useless, we're basically crowd control at that point. So,
What's the risk in just getting rid of the ordinance altogether? Like, not saying it's allowed and not saying it's not allowed.
From my perspective, the risk would be not classifying what's allowed and what's not. So if you're not restricting it to consumer fireworks, that then opens it up to
10, right?
anything.
In town?
Big area, huge area displays that we usually hire out for, people are training for, so on and so forth. That was our biggest concern with the ordinance, is getting that definition right. Yeah, that would be my concern, it's a free-for-all at that point.
as far as the hours too, but I suppose the noise ordinance would cover that.
Our noise ordinance is pretty good.
And
Yeah, it's very enforceable, so I have no.
Yeah, if anybody's annoyed, that's essentially.
Yes, that's why I love our noise ordinance versus most other municipalities. Our level and threshold for us to actually act upon it is so low. If your cat's meowing too loud, I'll write you a citation.
The neighborhood's feral cats are way too loud, come take care of it.
Yes.
We don't catch feral cats.
Micah does,
What?
catch feral
Oh, yeah.
cats.
Needs to be
Really?
recognized. Nice cat rescue.
I'll call you next time, like, have a cat stuck in a storm tree.
That's the one.
Oh, really?
The rescue.
Mrs. Luther, she pretty much made it to where I will not entertain setting live traps ever again.
So for you, for the police department, would it be easier if they did just allow them, so then you wouldn't have to be chasing around the ones that are like them? Is it, it's probably gonna be the same amount of calls either way. I suppose.
Here's kind of the way that I perceive it, is one, the lazy part of me says yes, then I don't have to chase around fireworks. But the more important part of it is I don't have to tie up my resources. So, on the 3rd of July, the 4th of July, we have a lot of resources in town. And when our primary focus is for the general safety of the masses, and we get drugged to a firework call, and we're there for 45 minutes, because we gotta sort through it. That doesn't help us in the sense where, like this last 3rd of July, we had both of our squad cars and 4 officers at jail at one time. We only had 2 people left in town, and they didn't even have a squad car. They were running around on a gator. So,
Are you gotta go to Canton for that?
for what?
Well, you
For
said-
jail?
Yeah.
No, we go to Sioux Falls.
Oh, you go to Sioux Falls.
Lincoln County contracts through Minnehaha.
Oh, okay.
So, and then once you're down there, if you're not lucky enough to be ahead of Sioux Falls PD and Minnehaha County, you get shuffled to the way back of the line, because they take priority.
Jeez.
And that night, we were there with 7 Sioux Falls PD officers and 5 Minnehaha County deputies.
Mm,
So we were there for over an hour before our guy even got talked to.
yeah.
And for us, it's, on a normal night, we only have 1 person. So on the 4th of July, we try to at least get 2 people out, so we have both cars can run. And if we're chasing fireworks all night, how many drunk drivers are we letting run on the road?
Right.
So we're tying down our resources. So, you know, not to say I wanna try to push an agenda on that, because I don't care either way. If we leave it the same, I'm good with it. But when it comes to us being able to do our job and effectively do our job on one of the biggest drinking holidays out there next to St. Patty's Day, I feel like we're not doing our job to the best of our ability, chasing around people lighting off Roman candles or bottle rockets.
It's hard to, you know, we leave it like it is and we go on, you know, we change it, we allow fireworks, we know we're gonna get, you know, community that's gonna have people excited about it and people that are not happy about it. And so we got more of that to deal with. The unknown of injuries or fire, it's just so unknown. Like I said earlier, the ones that are probably careless are probably shooting them in town anyways right now, so is there gonna be much of an increase? We don't know. So it's really, it's hard to say. I could go either way.
Most of the people in this town are fairly responsible. They're rule followers. You got 1% of the population in this town that they don't care. So the likelihood we're gonna have increased fireworks, absolutely. If you allow it, there's gonna be a ton more that are gonna go up. But for the most part, people in the town are generally responsible, and the ones that aren't responsible are already doing it.
I know, yeah.
So, I don't know.
I guess it's fire department's thoughts. Yay or nay, I mean, I know what you've said, but like, you guys are the ones that are. the ones-
For us, I think it's the department's best interest that we don't allow them, but, you know, that's just our side of the story too. I mean, we can deal with it if you do allow them, so.
Yeah, I mean, like, every year there seems like there's some, whether it's, stupidity in the garbage cans or something landing on a roof, which I don't know if that's what that Wally one was, but it seems like every year, either T or Harrisburg has had calls in the past 5 years probably of something, some structure wise. And then, I mean, saw on the latest on Lennox, somebody posted a hole in their cover. I mean, it's, hot embers coming down, and like you said, over that way you have tons of trees. But
That's the only type of part of town that really scares me, because like, you lose radio traffic in that part of town. So, if somebody puts something big enough up over in that area, I will 100% guarantee you, we will be talking to these gentlemen later that night.
I mean, if we think it's gonna tie up our resources more, I don't think we should probably change anything, but if we don't think it's gonna change much, I guess I'm okay with whatever. Cause like what Will said, and you guys are probably on the same page, you'd rather have your resources available for things that could happen outside of fireworks, rather than just worrying about fireworks.
If we allow it, can we really emphasize this is like a trial year? And if, you guys screw up,
Don't screw this up.
yeah.
I know, I
Any
was thinking
ordinance
that.
can be rewritten, right?
I know, and it's like, if we do
Two
change
readings,
the
it's
ordinance,
not- I mean, if you wanna get rid of it afterwards,
Yeah.
it takes 2 readings, but.
yeah.
And at this point, if you were to pass this one, the first test would be New Year's Eve.
Right.
True.
Which probably isn't much of a test.
Hey, at least there's
I
snow
don't know.
around.
Maybe.
Certainly not.
Are there some cities that have restrictions on certain kind of fireworks too?
They open it up in their language to commercially purchased, is typically the language I think that we were finding, is commercially
We went
purchased.
with,
Consumer.
Okay,
consumer fireworks under SDCL 34, 37.1.
But nothing on the
Just glass.
commercial grade, or.
because those get higher and bigger.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, so
but there
you're
are-
thinking those mortars, 2-inch mortars, that would be allowed.
Yeah.
But I don't think anything larger.
No, but there were quite a few ordinances that had right in there about the permits. For people who wanted to put off them large displays like that, they had to obtain a permit. I think, was it T or Parker that has like $1,000 for the permit?
I think it was Parker. And we don't require a payment for that permit, it's simply done, we would require a permit,
Like a special events type of.
but it needs to be approved, for organizations organized public fireworks displays based upon such terms and conditions as established by the city council, which we usually handle that special event permit for the commercial club. Then they handle communication with fire on coordinating fire control and so on and so forth. Which we would require for any commercial display.
And that was the nice thing that separated them, was basically if you could go down to Black Cat and buy it, then you could shoot it off in the city.
It is a little confusing, like being fairly newer to town, that we allow sales of fireworks in the town, and then you're not allowed to shoot them off, so, and, I don't know.
There was
I
another
don't disagree.
on on T's ordinance, I believe they updated that on, they don't just allow anybody to set up a tent.
Sure.
Now it requires permit and payment
Yep.
for permit.
Yep.
One reasonable restriction would be no aerial,
Right.
you can still do,
Um,
any ground-based display, but no aerial fireworks, that would be kind of a halfway point. I'm not at all convinced that that's not still gonna be a firework, because
Sometimes they catch
I
you by surprise.
I think
You don't know they're gonna go.
the fountains and those kinds of things are probably the ones that are most likely to make their way into.
Just
the-
as you're
ground
Right.
Not speaking from experience, but.
I think that'd be harder for you if you allow some and not others too, as far as.
Well, and if this last 4th of July taught me anything, is just because it says it's a fountain doesn't mean it doesn't go 30 feet.
Yeah,
Right,
I know.
So, you know, how do you really
it's still throwing
penalize?
in,
Yeah, how do you penalize somebody and enforce that when it was a fountain, but at the end it had that grand finale?
Yep. And,
It's tough,
and that hot stuff can go in the garbage later and, yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's more of the fires though, you'd say you've heard about, is that kind of a issue?
That's gonna be more of your major fires because
Okay,
they
You don't
go,
know.
they might burn for 3 hours before
Yeah.
anybody notices it.
yeah,
by that time everybody's in bed.
yep,
And there's a lot of people that don't leave their garbage can out by the garage anymore, they bring them inside the garage.
Yeah. It's usually a structure fire because of garage.
And it's common sense stuff, but
Common sense ain't so
Common sense.
common.
Okay.
Yeah, can we have that second one? The city council shall have the authority to suspend the discharge of fireworks by city council resolution under unusually dry conditions and stupidity.
you have to come take a common sense test.
I like the way you soft-sided that.
Yes.
I keep on going back to just the amount of fireworks I keep hearing that go off in town. People are doing it anyways.
I mean, I heard a lot over by our area this year.
Oh, yeah, they were,
There was a lot
I was
of
driving home and they were,
Yep.
neighbors were doing it right then and
Well,
there.
they rounded up my
Okay,
dog
all right.
upstairs.
It was just around the corner from the
Same.
house, I can tell you
I
exactly
didn't even
where
go
it's
out
at.
of the house, like,
No, other way.
Other way, got it,
There was quite a few calls.
got it.
Quite a few.
I mean, like Mike said, I think, fire department wise, I mean, yes, we're here to not have fires, so obviously we've seen what happens but, we're gonna be there whatever happens, so.
I mean, this spitballing off from what you said just a little while ago, what if we try to raise it? And you guys have the ability to say something catastrophic happens. I hate to even put that out because I know now that I did that, it's in the air. If something catastrophic happens or this doesn't turn out the way you guys intended on it, it's a matter of the next day or the next meeting. Yeah, we need to get rid of that. This was a horrible idea. I mean, you're not gonna make everybody happy, but I think there needs to be more of the general public that chimes in on this.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
30,000 people in this town and you hear from 100 of them, it's
Yep.
a very small
That's a
pool.
good day survey wise for
I was
us.
gonna say, that's actually probably pretty good.
The only thing
Unfortunately.
the only thing that yields a better response is baseball and softball,
put it at the end of a baseball survey.
so. What do you guys think about fireworks?
What if you
At
offer,
baseball games?
what if you offer some sort of discount on their water bill?
Another thing would be like the fireworks tent that is down there on South Main. There can't be fireworks lit off within, and I don't know the exact guideline on that, but
Yeah,
so many feet of
Yep.
that
I
building.
think it's like 500 feet or more.
It's at least
I think it's
500,
500.
I'm sure.
Well,
It'd be something to think
Yes.
about.
That'd be an amazing display though.
Yes.
Well, by,
I think that's about the standby call.
Hold on.
Looks like we're doing
I was
better.
thinking a little bit behind me.
Yeah.
If you think about years ago, there used to be a
Because
group of
people are
people in
shooting
town that
fireworks
used to go
off
down to
in
the
a
football
circle
field
all
parking
the
lot
time.
and light them
Pretty
up,
cool.
Sure.
because that was acceptable.
It is interesting though, I mean, it is 78 to 22%. And could be a hot topic for people to chime in on too, so if people are very opposed to it, you think that would be an opportunity for them to chime in on it, and they didn't? Or it's not as many didn't?
One of the things that was noted during the council meeting back in June was that the comments were overwhelmingly against.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know that if that's something you can necessarily say, well, they're more passionate about this than others are or not, but I think almost every reason I've ever heard was listed in there. I don't know about pets, I don't know if pets were listed in there, but.
Yeah, there's a couple with people that have served in the military
Yep.
and concerned for that,
Yep.
but again, there's already fireworks going off in town, so. Or we figure out a way to, if we wanna keep fireworks restricted within the city, we really crack down on it somehow more. Cause how many people are newer to town, I don't know, or have been here for 10 years, and do they know it's illegal? I don't know. So
They do
Will
if Will's
knocks on their door.
visiting.
Yeah,
They do
exactly.
if Will's visiting.
I don't know.
I
That's
didn't
how
know
we
that was
found out.
yeah. I didn't even know that was a city ordinance until you showed up. You've lived here for 5 years, sir, don't tell me that.
Is that the first things out of their mouth usually? Yeah.
But in all fairness, typically when you don't deal with somebody, they don't take the time to learn those rules and regulations until they've accidentally violated them. And, you know, again, that's kind of our job to decipher whether or not this is legit or.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the increase of fire and accident, it'll increase, we know that, that'll be more of a risk that we, would be willing to take on. But we can change the ordinance if it seems like this is going in the wrong direction. I hate to do that because I feel like if we would really do our due diligence and think this through, we should have an ordinance that makes sense for a long time, but.
It makes sense until it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No such thing as a perfect one, I suppose.
No, we can think we hit it right on the head and then something.
8 months
comes up.
later, we've done that. We've come back 8 months later and said, there's small issues here that we think we need to resolve.
You know.
That's normal.
I mean, just look at our trial and error with our parking ordinance. That is a prime example
Parking, yeah.
of how an ordinance was written with all the best intentions for the community, and we had to go over that, 5 times before we had something really tangible?
I think we changed it twice.
Right, but
With
before,
a lot of
it-
discussion.
But
before,
it went through a lot of revision,
yeah.
a
So-
lot.
And I still think that there's room to grow on that, and I don't think anything's ever perfect. There's always gonna be that one exception that's gonna make you think,
Yeah. And what are we solving if we do change the ordinance?
His resources.
Yeah.
That's the number one, I mean, that's the positive aspect that I
Yeah.
see is that Will's resources are freed up to, like he said, take care of the drunks on the road or.
Right.
How many calls on an average, 3rd, 4th, 5th of July? Are fireworks related?
I would be very comfortable in saying over a dozen to 2 dozen.
Okay.
Because a lot of those are officer-initiated calls. So if we,
So we'll be out doing our
there,
patrol.
yeah, there's calls that we actually have calls for service on, and there's calls that we're just rolling by and I'll roll down the window and say, hey, no, you can't be doing that, that needs to get off the road. Case in point, I was leaving at 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning on the 3rd of July, 4th of July. And I rolled through an intersection off from Elm Street that they had just set up another round of fireworks on at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, and you know, it's one of those things that at that point, I'm in my personal vehicle going home.
For civilian, yeah.
I've got, I just remember that Mark sent me report on Friday for July.
Oh.
2 fireworks calls on the 5th. Won't see me on the 4th or 3rd. That might be something.
We had some rain this year though on the
Yeah.
third,
On the
so
3rd.
it might have helped with the urge
Actual
to do
call.
fireworks.
Yeah.
But again, there are the calls that we actually create calls for service, which are typically a neighbor has called in.
Yeah.
But if we roll up on it, a lot of times we don't start a call for service,
Mm.
unless we actually have to do something. If we write somebody a ticket, they're gonna have a call for service.
Sure.
You guys have a busy month.
Yep.
I keep
Yeah,
going back
I-
to the authority to suspend it. Is there anything we can write in there to, like, say something happens on the 3rd, and like,
Right.
no,
We can't have 2 meetings to pass a new resolution that.
Can you have a meeting on the morning of the 4th to pass a resolution suspending it?
Would we have enough people in town to do it?
Right?
I mean, it takes how many people to pass a vote for?
You need 4 here.
Are there usually, can mayor vote, or is he not?
Only in the court, only in the case of a tie.
So you'd have to have 4 council members.
Yes.
and there's nothing we can write in this resolution saying that we can just,
You can give someone else that authority, whether it be, city administrator, police chief, fire chief, something along those lines. But I think if you're going to do that, there need to be clear guidelines for what would necessitate
Yeah.
that suspension, right? I mean, I don't know that I'd feel comfortable, or you would with just, well, that sucked, let's go, let's just suspend this.
You're done.
You know, in my mind, there really needs to be some sort of objective criteria for making that.
Well,
Just
also,
like with abnormally dry conditions. It's not really well defined, but we know, what the drought monitor says at any given day. And so we can go off of that.
the other thing that you'd have to really look at, when you do something that dramatic, and you say, okay, it's 4 p.m., we just had a hand blown off, we're suspending it for the entire town. How do you get that word out to them?
yeah.
And if you can't get that word out to everybody, then yeah, you've effectively suspended it with everybody that you can reach. But the vast majority of people, you're not going to reach. You're gonna have so many people that are not from this community that are gonna be here during those times.
I probably
Even
would
Charles
just
Stansel.
cancel, no,
That's how we let everybody know.
yes.
I'll just text
Just put it on ransom rates.
Well, raspberries are available.
What's that?
Don't get me here.
So it'd be very difficult to just.
Well, and you'd have people that would find out about it, so I didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
Exactly. I didn't know anything about that.
The same ones that didn't know it wasn't an ordinance, and they've been talked to every year for the past 3 years.
Right.
Do we ever really have any kind of way of counting, not necessarily every person, but a general idea of how big our town grows on the 3rd and the 4th?
We don't have a good measure
How many years ago somebody
now.
said?
10 to 15,000.
Yeah, that's
That's
what
your,
they were telling.
that's the best guess. Year like this year for the parade, we had a ton of people.
Yeah, thanks to Sioux Falls. Appreciated them.
We did appreciate that.
But we don't know if those people stay into the evening hours.
Correct.
I mean, they could just be in the park and then leave.
Yeah, it seems to, the large masses seem to leave.
By 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the end of all the
Yeah.
arts in the park and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it gets pretty quiet, I feel like.
Sorry.
Cause even the
Agreed.
firework display that we have, I mean, it doesn't ever, I mean, there's
No.
quite a few people that attend that, but it doesn't
Yeah.
seem like
It's not
a
drawing.
ton of people come to our town display or the
No.
commercial club display.
It used to be a pretty big event.
Yeah,
Used to get a lot of crowd.
It kinda depends on how it falls in the week too.
it does.
Sure, if it's more of a weekend. Yep.
I will say this year was a pretty good 3rd and 4th of July. With that rain that came in, kind of settled down, things at the time we needed it to settle down. But all in all, it was pretty good.
It's probably some of the nicest weather we've had setting up the parade and stuff. As far
For
as
sure.
now,
July 4 at 1:48 a.m. Like South Main Street.
Yeah.
2:15 disorderly done.
Yeah, I'll take the weather that we have this year in here,
Mhm.
temperature wise.
Right.
So the hope would be from this committee or this gathering to just kind of be able to bring a suggestion to the city council, but,
We got time, but obviously we wanna get something in place
Yeah, I
at
think so.
some point.
Again, we've got plenty of time if we want to give this more study. But I think the goal is to come back to the city council as a whole with a recommendation. Whether it's this ordinance, a different ordinance, other restrictions in place, no changes, whatever it might be.
Well, I think that was obviously the biggest concern. You know, we have 78% on the survey, but, you know, in my gut was like, okay, yeah, that's cool, but then you read through the memo and there's, you know, obviously I wanted to talk to you guys and let's kind of gauge this a little, let's take our time with this. And
I mean, do you guys need to talk to your counterparts and the rest of the
We could
staff?
certainly bring it up at our next meeting and get the whole department's opinion on
Yes, it's not just gonna be you two
yeah,
Right.
that are out there fighting a fire, you know?
yeah. That's, you know, obviously that's the position of a alderman. You know, you look at this and you're like, well, this is what the people want, but you have to factor
Everything.
everything in, so.
Some people realize that.
Yeah. So,
Thoughts on next steps?
I would say we let these guys talk to their departments and come back, maybe meet up in a month again or something. That sounds fair.
I think so.
Kind of digest things and see what direction we wanna go, if there is one yet. I mean, right now, the New Year's is all we gotta really worry about for, get it done by. Unless there's some special event that's coming up, we're gonna shoot some off.
It's Tuesday.
Does your
Right.
ordinance allow special events, or is it just 4th and New Year's Eve?
Allow special events by permit.
I mean, you could have, like, homecoming or something, somebody could ask for it, I suppose, but it would have to be approved,
No.
you know, something like that, I don't know.
So meet again in September or October.
Yeah.
October Fire Safety Month.
Let's skip up.
Exactly.
So September or
Listen, kids.
We're gonna talk about fireworks. You guys all like the smoke.
See this
But-
camper?
I think, I don't know, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes too, and how to lead that dialogue with all the people that serve on the fire department too, and, you know, other than just asking, what do you think, it's like, I really think to try to think that through thoughtfully on what does it mean specifically for the fire department, what concerns do we have, what are something that, like, you know, what aren't we concerned about? It's gonna, like we said, the shifting of resources from police over to fire is going to change, so.
yeah.
who's around even, you know, just, I think, really think that through that dialogue, what that looks like when you meet with your, department, but.
It's pretty easy, I'm sure, for him to say, heck, no, we don't want any more business
Yeah.
that way, but.
Maybe from our side of things, we can take a deeper look into years past on how many firework calls that we've had calls for service on.
Yeah, maybe get some
I think that's
statistics between now and then too, yeah.
Maybe, you know, like on the medical side, how many medicals do you guys go to? No, for fireworks, let me clarify that.
Very, very few.
Five in the last
I said
9 years.
3 or 4 in
yeah,
the last
okay.
9 years.
I was wrong
But
enough.
you guys have a broader scope on that than I'll ever really find out the fire calls that you guys have, and that's even the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
I mean, I could
Yeah,
probably.
we hear, you know, like our last fireworks was that Vale, or, you know, Haitian fire because of it, and then we're, you know, going to Worthing. But it seemed like every year after that, either Harrisburg or T, we're going to something because of it, and then hearing the Wall Lake, and it just seems like there's always some.
Would it be possible to check with the state fire marshal too, to see if they have statistics on
Yeah, I could
fireworks
look
related
into that. Yeah.
issues in South Dakota? I searched kind of, I didn't see anything,
Okay.
except national stuff.
I'm not surprised that there isn't a bunch of, that there's not EMT culture, because it's not like necessarily a trauma situation. If someone injures himself or burns, you know, they could probably drive to Sioux Falls.
Depending on how minor they are.
Yeah.
How large they are.
Yeah.
Only need 5 fingers to drive the car.
But you'd be amazed how many times they get called for a stub toe.
Serious? Oh my God.
What happened? Let's run away.
If you
Sam,
can't walk to your car, what are you gonna do?
Don't even push me over.
Mike and I were talking earlier about the farm gas co-op, and then,
Yeah, I get nervous
Oh, yeah.
because of that.
I mean,
You're
do
right.
do we
You're
have
right
to
next
have something written in there,
So
like
am I, really.
no fireworks in those neighborhoods, or, you know,
Within X many feet
yeah,
of,
or
a
even our
fuel station.
neighborhood by that other.
Gas stations.
Mid-America.
Yeah.
So,
They
I mean,
have- they have
are those bubbles
exploded.
getting so big that we only have a certain area in
Yeah.
town that you're shooting them off from anyway? So-
If
Yeah,
you're
that is scary.
limited
That
to
was a
500
freaky
feet
time.
within farm gas, Casey's, Senex. I think the northern pipeline is, I mean, it's not in town, but it's
Yeah, there's
some of town would be included in the 500 feet. What else?
I'm curious, yeah, you start putting some of those circles around our map.
We could do a radius
Yeah.
Yeah.
around all those.
Um,
I think that information would be good.
Yeah.
too.
500 and 1,000 foot radius.
And I, like the council too, really wanted to be able to have the fire speak into this specifically, and so I wanna make a decision that we have disagreement on, or, you know, you guys asking, what are you guys thinking, you know, so we really wanna have support of all of our, services too, to make sure we're on the same page, so.
I was just kind of thinking down here tonight, if a person could have like metal dumpsters in open areas that people could discard them, but then how do you control everybody from just putting their trash in there too?
Right.
Right.
Well, at that point, you're taking some of that liability
Right.
out too.
Yeah,
Anytime you put your name as providing that, even you gotta think about the whole safety video aspect of it. Who's putting that on? Who's taking the liability of not covering every
Yeah,
aspect of
just
the
have
safety?
somebody stand there all night.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
then you do that.
Yeah.
if any of the conversations with the city attorney and the state's attorney have taught me anything, it's, involve yourself as little as possible to public events. Less liability.
With like even creating an area for people to shoot off fireworks, it just, that sounds like it gives more of a headache,
Yeah.
yeah.
Even, I mean, just the safety aspect, but also, you're talking folks that have been drinking, they're gonna fight over space, they're gonna fight over, I was here here first.
Yeah, I mean, you could have some 55-gallon drums with a third full of water or something.
Mhm.
Who's paying for that, Sam?
Right. Well, you could probably get drums from somebody. That's expensive water that you gotta put in.
Any other last thoughts too, for people?
Our August meeting's the fourth Tuesday of this month.
Okay,
We'll talk about it.
Good.
first.
So sometime in September. I'll send another survey around for when we can get together in September and figure out a time.
Okay.
All right,
Sounds good.
all right, thanks.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Guys, we got some things from the meeting,
Really,
but
no,
what-
if your wife is planning to come to Lions,
Yeah.
family thing on Thursday.
I don't know.
All right, guys, good night.
Yeah.
I should have texted her before saying, I think she's our treasurer now.